what artificial intelligence can contribute to genomics, to bioinformatics, and in specific to the study of increasing human health span. And I'm going to touch on the potential that exists in the combination of three factors: artificial intelligence, genomics, and then experimental evolution, which Michael has just been talking about. And this is going to be a pretty fast talk on some pretty deep topics, so it's more of an abstract than an in-depth explanation. And the conceptual idea underlying my work applying the AI to biology is that we can, if we want to think of the human body as a very complex machine, which is one approach to take, which has yielded a lot of fruit, whether or not it's the absolute truth. I mean, it's a very complex machine. There's complexity on multiple levels, and the human body and brain, as Michael has been pointing out, is really evolved to solve a hunter-gatherer's problems. I mean, we've evolved to run around outdoors, to get sex, to get food, to beat up our enemies, to have exercise, and have fun in a very different way than what scientists are doing now. Our brains did not evolve to recognize patterns in molecular biology and protein folding and complex biological networks. So we're not all that well suited to understand the data that our amazing instruments are now gathering regarding the biological function of our bodies. And for this reason, biologists right now rely heavily on computers to help them analyze data. They use statistical tools, they use data mining tools. And what I've been finding in my work since I started applying AI to biology around, I guess it was 2001, 2002, is that artificial intelligence tools of various sorts can help a lot in interpreting the data that biologists have gathered. And I think this can be pushed a lot further, that you can use AI to help guide new biological experiments and analyze the results of those with AI. You get a sort of virtuous cycle going on with AI, genomics, and experimental evolution all helping each other. And the big challenge that biology faces going forward, I think, is complexity. The complexity of biological networks at multiple levels, and the human mind's difficulty in grappling with this complexity. And on a business level and a practical level in terms of our own life extension, one consequence of this is the challenge that the pharmaceutical industry now faces. I mean, if any of you remember, probably all of you do, when the Human Genome Project was first advertised, this was supposed to be amazing in terms of its implications for development of pharmaceuticals. And that bounty hasn't really yet been reaped. I mean, the Human Genome Project has been amazing for biological science, but the bounty of blockbuster drugs from the Human Genome Project has not yet come about. And this is really because the processes intervening between the genotype and the phenotype are quite complex and multifaceted, and we don't have the theoretical tools or the conceptual mindset to grapple with this complexity. So the pharmaceutical industry is struggling to determine the practical therapeutic implications of the genomic bounty that's been created. And this complexity exists in longevity research just as in other areas of pharmaceutical research. I mean, there are many, many interesting specific mechanisms underlying aging and underlying longevity that have been discovered. And the work Aubrey has been leading and advocating, which many of us are aware of, and he'll talk about very briefly in a little bit. I mean, this focuses on repairing the damage which occurs in our bodies as we age, which of course is very valuable. But on the other hand, given the complexity of biological networks, it's not yet clear how far you can go in repairing the damage without understanding the systems that are being damaged and the various side effects of various treatments. It may work fabulously, and I'm sure it will work to some extent. But if we really understood the complex networks going on, of course, we could repair the damage even better, as well as, in a more principled way, figure out how to reach the immortality plateau sooner, as Michael was describing. So longevity is complex, aging is complex, and the more we can understand it, the underlying systems, the better, currently we're not doing that great a job of understanding it because our minds are not well tuned for it and our statistical tools are not that good at it. And artificial intelligence potentially could be either a small or a large part of the answer. I always like to distinguish between what I call narrow AI and general AI, or AGI, artificial general intelligence. Narrow AI being AI tools that solve specific problems, achieve specific difficult tasks very effectively, tasks that we generally consider intelligent when humans do them. AGI being the capability of a computer program to solve a wide variety of problems in the general and fluid way that humans do, including problems that were not necessarily conceived at the time the program was implemented. I think both narrow AI and AGI have valuable implications for bioinformatics and for longevity research and biology broadly. So one of my projects has been a startup called BioMind, LLC, focused on applying AI to bioinformatics. We've predominantly worked with machine learning so far, and this is technical stuff I won't go into much here, but this is a lot of what we've been doing together with Genomics, is given the data regarding the expression of genes and the SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms in the genes of long-lived flies and control flies, apply machine learning technology to try to recognize patterns in this genetic data, to learn the patterns in the genetic data from studying it. And the machine learning technology can learn patterns that neither traditional statistical tools nor the unaided human mind can identify. And before working with Genomics, we had some significant successes with this. So we found the first proof of a genetic basis for chronic fatigue syndrome, which before that people were thinking, well, maybe all these guys with CFS are just tired. And of course, maybe some of them are, or there can be other syndromes that intersect with it. But we did find, using machine learning, statistically significant predictors of CFS based on the expressions of the genes in the people with CFS. And in Parkinson's disease as well, we found a nearly 100% accurate predictor of whether someone has Parkinson's disease or not based on the heteroplasmic mutations in their mitochondrial DNA, which doesn't say that the mitochondrial mutations cause Parkinson's, but it's a very high predictive correlation, which is interesting and points you in certain directions in terms of analyzing why Parkinson's happens. So that in these cases, and many others by us and by many other researchers as well, machine learning has been powerful at finding patterns in biological data. And there's an open source software toolkit we've developed called Open BioMind, which is specific kinds of ensemble-based machine learning that are well-tuned for biological data sets, which anyone can download and use to analyze data sets. It's most mature for gene expression data sets, but we've also applied to SNP data, fMRI data, and some other things. So I think both narrow AI and AGI have a lot of power to help biology. I mean, eventually, personally, I think that AGI scientists will put human biologists out of business, because I think we're just not attuned for this kind of work, as well as for some other things. But until that happens, using machine learning tools and other sorts of AI tools can be extremely valuable for helping biologists to do what they do. And what Genomics is working on is using a fundamental understanding of the genomics underlying aging, which we can derive from analyzing the data of the long-lived flies and other populations of flies and other organisms as well, to try to get a rational understanding of which substances are worthy to test to extend life, including, as Gregory was talking about, nutrigenomic substances as well as traditional pharmaceutical therapeutics. And we're also just starting some work involving collaborating with the University of California, Genomics and BioMind, where we hope to be looking at more different populations of flies that Michael's lab has evolved with many different phenotypes, not just the Methuselah flies, but if you have fly populations evolved to have all sorts of different characteristics, there's a lot of interesting work you can do analyzing that data. And one thing that we haven't worked on yet, which would be certainly valuable, let's say you have a certain phenotype. You want to evolve flies with very good hearts, or flies that are very good at solving certain types of puzzles, for example. we can use AI to predict, okay, these flies that are good at solving puzzles, what's their genome going to look like? And when we get to the point we can use AI to predict something about that meaningfully, and then the experimental evolution validates that, then we'll really know we understand something. And then where the AI was wrong, then you can go back and correct your theoretical understanding. And this kind of virtuous cycle between experimental evolution, genomics, and AI, it's the best idea that I know so far of how to really understand how these complex biological networks function. Of course, humans are not flies, and there's going to be some significant differences there, but there are many, many genes which are orthologous between humans and flies. And the big advantage of working with an organism like Drosophila is that you can do experimental evolution before you yourself get old and die. So we've worked already with applying AI to the Methuselah flies, and a lot of this is current work which is going to be published later in 2011. But there's preliminary evidence that there may be a few dozen age-associated genes that have a particularly important role in the longevity. And there's no single gene or like 3 genes where, oh, mutations in these genes make the flies live a long time. It doesn't work like that. But there may still be a relatively small number of genes that are particularly influential, having roles, say, as hubs in the biological networks underlying aging, or having other critical functions. And so to sum up and recapitulate, I mean, I think what we ultimately need is an AI biologist. And then all the humans can go out and be hunter-gatherers so they can live a long time, right? But until we get to that point, we're using machine learning to analyze biological data. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? And I'm going to give another brief talk tomorrow. I'm going to talk about my AGI project, which is OpenCog, which is aimed at trying to make a human-level general intelligence. And in general, the path that I see forward is, with OpenCog, we're trying to create basically artificial children living in a video game world or controlling simple robots. And with BioMind and with the work with Ganeshan, we're working on narrow AI to analyze very specific problems. My hope is we can put these together and get early-stage AGIs, which are not exactly human-like, but have a roughly human-like generality of thought, but are very good at doing some specific things, like crunching biology data, which humans are not specifically good at. Some of these thoughts I wrote about in an article in Humanity Plus magazine, edited by the great Are You Serious, who talked this morning. The article was called AI's, Superflies, and the Path to Immortality. So you can Google that and read a slightly more detailed version of the argument that I've given just now. And I think I actually finished on time. Okay?